Parliament plenary session lasted more than 5 hours. Good evening. Welcome to this new edition of DeFacto Review, a weekly roundup of news and current affairs here in Mongolia, with the commentator and economist and columnist Gerald DeFacto, and I'm Anand Tumurtaga. You can watch us live on Facebook at MMB World and Gerald DeFacto. For today's program, the Ministry of Finance presents the report in the 2018 budget execution. Parliament amended a new law to the parliamentary procedure. President Kh.Battulga presents a petition to the General Prosecutor to look into the Kh.Battulga mines. For the first time our budget expenditure did not exceed its expenditure, and we had very good income. So what influenced the state budget to have a surplus rather than a deficit? Can you tell us, please?
Sure. Before we go to this topic, I'd like to explain what is this kind of balanced budget, budget balance.
Mm-hmm.
Balanced means from the financial year, from every revenue to the budget, you send the money to two funds in Mongolia. One is the Fund of Future. Second is the Fund of Budget Stabilization.
Mm-hmm.
After cutting this part, the remaining will be compared with your expenditure. Then this time it is coming more positive.
Mm-hmm.
First time for the last 9 years at least. It's good news on one side.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, this is 25% higher than they have been planning. So it's a budget planning quality issue.
Oh.
But however, we remember for last all years, they had always reconsideration of plan of their budget every year. And this year, first time for last 9 years, the government had not reconsidered their plan, which gave the chance to have this budget surplus.
Why didn't they reconsider it? Can you explain?
Or because when the revenue comes more than they planned, like this time, they usually reconsidering their expenses. As a result, they're always making the budget with the deficit, which is not good because it is always increasing the deficit, then the government needs to borrow more money. And that means now or in a certain time after, we have Mongolians to pay more money abroad, which is no good for Tugruk exchange rate and also for our payment balance.
So some economists have expressed that the only reason why the budget had a surplus is because the price increase of coal, and they're trying to say that this is not good. They're just using these numbers. And what do you think about this?
Well, first time it is, we talk about the budget deficit, the surplus around 10 billion tugriks. And out of this 10 billion tugriks, why the budget revenue had increased so much? 670 billion tugriks is coming from the mining industry. 1.3 trillion is coming from non-mining industry. Mining industry is okay because 40% of our export is coal. The price for coal this year was relatively higher, though it goes down now to the end of the year, also because China is importing less from all around the world, less coal. 1.3 trillion tugriks, which is not from mining sector, they explain that it is coming from, half of them is coming from VAT tax increased revenue. What does that mean? When you have VAT tax increased, while the rate is not increased, law is not changed, but the revenue is coming up, that means the shadow economy is becoming less, and the real economy is bigger.
So the VAT is, you're talking about the coal?
No, not coal. I mean, non-mining sector revenue increase, that's what I'm talking about. And out of this, almost half of them has to do with the VAT tax, VAT revenue increase. So that's good news on one side, because now government had increased the registration of companies, their VAT payments with certain incentives. You pay a certain amount of money, you get back a certain amount. So that is good signal to the economy, because now we have more legal companies than before. Another one is, as we talked, they have not considered the reconsideration of budget this year, first time, which is good news. The third, our the credit rating of Mongolia has increased. So overall, things look good from the government point of view.
So can you say that that in the minister stated that in 2019 and 2020 we don't have a large debt, but in 2020 we're coming up with a large debt. And your thoughts on this? I'm sorry, in 2021.
Yeah, it's true. Up to now, this government is happy because it is just in the break before large payment. Like in 2021, 2022, we have to pay 1 billion Chinggis bond money one day. So it's better to prepare from now. However, the money which is coming for the budget stabilization fund, that fund has 1 trillion tugriks debt to the previous fund, which was the Human Development Fund, which the money were distributed in cash to people as that time ruling two parties have promised money. So still Mongolia, in spite of this all surplus this year, we have not enough money to pay that debt in 2-3 years.
Are we preparing for that?
That's the question, because this preparation fund this is still zero, because the 1 trillion tugriks we have now in this fund will be spent. But I would like to also add here, we need to increase the quality of our coal export, because next year, most likely, China is not going to increase the import because they are closing lower standard mining, safety mining, many mines. And these are saying that you are closing us, but you are still importing coal. That's why most probably China will not like more export, in our case, more than 36 million tons coal we export this year, but rather we have to pay attention to the quality of the coal we export. For example, this year, this Irdnis Energy Resource Company have export 5 million out of 36 million, but this is a refined coal, washed coal, and it costs 2 times more than the coal they are just digging it out. So Mongolia probably will need to have to wash more coal next year, that we have maybe 36 million tons, the same volume, but we have a higher revenue. Also they say that why if the budget is good, all the revenue is good, why it is not reflected in the living standard of the people?
Yes, exactly. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it is not reflected only because we have exchange rate of tugrik 8.6% increased this year. That means 2,440 to 2,650, 8.6% increase. Devaluation of Mongolian tugriks, one. Secondly, inflation 8% for last year. This combined together, deleting the benefits that we have received with more additional revenue, unfortunately. It's not good news, because inflation and more exchange rate makes not more labor, more working place, works. And many people are still leaving Mongolia. They go to Korea. 46,000 Mongolians are living in Korea. 10,000 of them have no jobs there. Still they go. Question is why? So still we need a lot to improve our economic policy to make more competitive our industry.
Can you briefly tell, like, how can the people feel the economic benefits in this year, maybe, if the economy grows this year also?
See, 2 main factors, as I said: exchange rate of tugrik devaluation, which is good for exporters, which is not good for those companies who is importing. So it is a matter of exchange rate stabilization, which has to do not with the trade balance as before. It has to do with the payment balance of Mongolia. Why? Because now the government is paying money abroad due to the interest rates of the debt, though the minister says not big one this year, but a lot for interest rates they pay money. And it is more than except Kh.Battulga, the other FDI, foreign direct investment money, is way less than that we are spending. So due to these facts, due to previous large borrowing, we now cannot keep the tugrik strong. That's the first reason. Second, the inflation, of course.
I see. Even though our economy grew, we should not be that happy about it. moving on to our next topic. On January 4th, the President of Mongolia, Kh.Battulga, presented a draft bill to amend the law on parliamentary procedure and was submitted to Kh.Battulga, the Speaker of Parliament. The bill was put to a vote on January 18, and Parliament passed the vote. Now Parliament has the authority to oust the President. No, not the President. Sorry, oust the Speaker. So we'll move on to that. So there wasn't a law where Parliament could oust the Speaker. Now we do have that. So does that mean that in the next Parliament session that the Speaker will be ousted then?
Well, that's what is expected. Otherwise, why we have such interesting drama for the last 2 months? It's very interesting political drama we see in Mongolia. You know, there is an old proverb in other countries which says that if the mountain doesn't come to Muhammad, then Muhammad goes to the mountain. If you try one thing to do in one method, if it doesn't work, you have to find another one. That's what's happening. Actually, the expectation is next Thursday, the plenary sessions will discuss this law. If it's approved, the next day, which is January 25th, Friday, this law will be in force. What does it mean? That means we will have, if everything will go as we plan, then we need to have a new speaker. Yeah. And
I believe that maybe before the Parliament session, wouldn't the Speaker resign before? Wouldn't it be better for him to resign before the Parliament session then?
Well, if he thought it is the version, the exit he wanted, he could do that much earlier. But he did not, and he was waiting the law change it. He said everything should go by law. I'm staying here by law, and I will go out by law. So that's now that you have the law, please. But the question is always coming, how come we to this point today? We came to this point because, again, as people, the voters, have not been participating in the major important events of democracy. There are two events. One is election, which is happening one day, and the other is participation in between two elections, 364 days. And Mongolians are not participating in controlling, monitoring the government you have created. And now we are learning that you need to control. Otherwise, you will have this situation where they don't work for two months.
Why do you think people aren't controlling the government or like monitoring the government maybe in the past or in other countries?
Two things: culture. Second, we have not learned very well about this democracy, the wonderful mechanism we have selected, and that we are not using completely. Now, there is a growing awareness of the people that if we monitor the government, we can do a better job. And what we do expect with this, he's resigning or replacing him with a new speaker. We do expect now there will be change of the three judiciary power, enforcement power, like general prokuror, and also the head of the anti-corruption agency, and the head of the Supreme Court Council.
So would that be that drastic when the speaker leaves? Then those people also will be pushed out from their office?
Because the speaker is deciding upon the agenda, which questions they will discuss. And now with the new speaker, that's the whole expectation. The final aim is not to get him resigned, but the final game is to have a speaker who would allow the sort of agenda, the issues in the government, the parliament agenda. And the expectation is that people will wait for all these changes one by one. But whether it is happening or not sure.
Some politicians, some political scientists compared our parliament republic to others, and our speaker seems to have more overriding power. Can you give more information about the authority and responsibility of our speaker?
Yeah, surprisingly, there looks very small, but however, the speaker of the parliament in Mongolia is deciding which issues they will be discussing at the parliament, a priority of the issues. And there are several laws that he never includes into the agenda. So in particular, for example, issues of certain figures heads of certain organizations, he is not including this sort of issues in the agenda. That's why they, compared to other countries, they find our parliament speaker has too much power in that sense.
And what exactly will happen? Like you talked about the prosecutors also getting dismissed, and also the head of the anti-corruption authority will probably also go. And what will also happen besides those changes?
Well, I believe that happens because the people are tired of corruption, and the corruption is not, if it is not on time, properly followed, prosecuted, things are happening like in the Mongolia. Now many people with allegedly corrupt people keep coming to the power, keep continuing to be a minister, parliament member, which is a good, the clear example is this small medium enterprise support fund. I mean, what, 30 parliament members having the fund's supposed to go to a small medium enterprise, they got it first, right? And now the deputy speaker, we'll talk about this deputy general prosecutor, who also got the money, and now they, from the small medium enterprises. So they are now asking who is the first to go out. You know, this is, if we go changing speaker, then we go slowly. The same situation happened in the Czech Republic in 2013. There were two major...
What exactly happened in Czech Republic?
Okay, there were two major parties who was running since the Velvet Revolution in 1989.
Just like Mongolia.
In Czech Republic, 20 years about. But they were major, the same scandal of corruption broke out. And then they have, one suggested to have a snap election, and which changed completely the political landscape of the country.
Just like happening in Mongolia right now.
Right now. What they decided is, by the way, they made much faster change than we do now. What happened was in 2013, the party suggested one prime minister, and which was not accepted by that time president. It took 2 months to nominate their final prime minister. And because the time too long, one large party decided, suggested to dismiss the whole parliament. They did. And what happened as a result, in 2 months they did it. And what happened was, out of these two large political parties, one is out, the one is staying, and they, at that election, had to make coalition government with the political party called ANO 2011, which was formed just a year ago. There was no party. And then it come to the power. And what happened after 5 years, 2017?
Yes, tell us.
That ANO won the election. So within 2 elections, in Czech Republic, they have completely new power.
So do you see that maybe the Hun party would go into power in the next election, maybe?
Kind of. One of the new parties, most probably Hun, come out. But it's hard to say they come out. But however, if we go changing speaker, and it will go rather slow reform. But if we dismiss the parliament, it will be much faster by the logic of the Czech parliament. So that's what I think.
I see. So moving on from that, you talked about the corruption scandals of the SME Development Fund, and our president, for our next hour, our president met with the general prosecutors meeting on Wednesday, and he talked about, and he gave and he presented 2 petitions as a citizen and also as a president.
He did.
To investigate.
He divided it,
to investigate the talented law mines and also our former president. And can you tell us about why did he do that? Why did he request it as a citizen and also as a president? Can you give us the highlights from the speech?
Well, this prosecutors' consultative meeting, so-called, happening every year at all levels, district, IMAC, all prosecutors come, make this consultative meeting every year. It turned out he was there last year as well, a year before, and he reminded them that I was here a year before, and nothing changed with the corruptions, with all these criminal acts. And now, if you don't remember, I will remind you that he said again what was this corruption things, and I will just briefly tell you what he was talking about. He was talking about the corruptions. Nothing is changed. Offshore account holders, nobody had brought money back. 60 billion Tugriks case, where the People's Party trying to have a fund by selling state positions.
There's a speaker, the Inkfold.
Nothing is again.
Yes.
And also he said about the 49% and 51% of Irtinet share. Nothing happened. And everything is clear, so many facts on the media, and why you haven't done anything. That's what he reminded them. And also he added the case of Zurich, the murder. He said this case has a lot. People are just confused with this case. So he brought this one. And then, as you said, he said, so please take care of these things. Unless you will make justice here, you cannot bring the justice to the society. In particular, he said, your deputy prosecutor, who also took the money from the Small Medium Enterprise Fund, how he is still doing his job. And I asked him, he said, President, I called him and said that you should resign and get the people check you. And you're still there. And the Prosecutor General, if you cannot solve the issue with your deputy, then how you can solve the issues with the parliament members, those who took the money?
Yes.
Very funny stuff. And he said, also, now, here's the final thing. Now, as a private citizen, I have a request to you take the file of some 178 or so files. Take the file from the former President Kh.Battulga, who was trying, he said, to sell Kh.Battulga, the mine we were talking about, to sell the foreigners for 60 plus 40 years extension through another ex-prime minister, Kh. And he said that he was planning to do these criminal acts.
Why would he do it as with two statuses, basically, like with as a citizen?
Because you see, very funny thing in our history, the Inkpayer president was arrested by the order or by the whole this initiative of the President Kh.Battulga. There was already kind of incident that the current minister, current president, made sure that the president is in prison. And in order not to repeat that strange case, the president is just coming as not as a president, as a private citizen.
Is that legal though, that he can just do it as two different statuses?
I don't know. As a lawyer, I'm not a lawyer, but legal or not legal. But as a president, he may say that, and anybody who finds injustice in our governance can go to the court and tell that this is the case. In particular, I have the proof. I think it is that any private citizen can do that. But what is everything? What is behind of everything? Unfortunately, it shows that inconsistency, incompetence of our judicial power to combat corruptions. Why? Many big things, very scandalous things come, big media, all of these things. The people have a voice, have a voice, and for 2-3 months, in some cases, 2-3 guys, in particular high-ranking guys, are arrested. Then after 2-3 months, they are released. So they all pretend to play this role of justice, which is actually, nobody is held actually corruption. We don't know a question of what happened with our Chinggis Khan bond money exactly. We don't have a full report.
And the Mongolian people are paying that right now, right?
Exactly. How the 49% of Internet was bought by one bank with public money and for depositors' money. So there are so many large criminal acts that the current existing government, unfortunately so far, is not able to dissolve the issues. That's why they try to change the structure of the governance itself. But without public participation, without complete transparency of all parts of the government, we will never reach that goal. So for that, people are to participate. People are to raise their voices more than now. Then we have a more chance to solve the issues that is hindering our prosperity, because the corruption private sector is not competitive. How you can compete with your minister if the guy has more information and have even a loan that is only 3%, and when you yourself as a business go to the commercial banks, they give you 20% annual interest rate. How you can compete with this? So that's why this kind of corruption is really stopping our progress.
Well, why do you think that people aren't like fighting back or demanding more transparency?
Two things. One is people are not aware completely the exactly what happened and the danger or impact of that bad things happening. Why? Because our media is also not completely free. Yes. Our politician, almost all political parliament members has own media. And there is very few media which does not belong to any politicians. So there looks like we have a freedom of speech, we have an infrastructure for that. But however, those people, this media will speak only the things that their bosses, their owners like it. So due to this limited technical freedom of the media, people are not discussing the issues in depth. And there is only, we have a little culture of debating the issues.
Debating the issues.
Yes. In fact, I have a program, DeFacto Debate, on this again for public TV, and I'm very thankful to Mongolian public TV that invited me for that debate and also for this amended world to say what the Mongolians think on our life today in English.
Moving on from that, like we don't have, you say we don't have a freedom of speech, or most of our media is controlled by politicians, and also that during the prosecutors meeting with the president, a lot of people saw that and saw the prosecutor and saw his gesture and did not like his gesture and did not like what he said to the president. And what are your thoughts about that? Like that most of the Mongolian mass does not approve of the general prosecutor and what he said.
You know what's my take? Mr. Inkamaglan, general prosecutor, was all the time a police inspector, as I said. And 2012 he was fired by the new minister at that time, Mr. Temujin. But he suddenly came back after 3 years. We don't know what he has been doing for that 3 years. President Bugdar put him to the current positions. Question is, for this such important positions, we better to know who is the guy, the person. So there is a public hearing law draft at the parliament. If this draft is approved, we will know exactly who is going to be the prosecutor general, who is going to be the head of the Supreme Court Council, and who is going to be the head of Constitutional Court. So with that, I think there's a big hope that we are moving forward. And the discussions we have is because this country is democratic, and we are full of enthusiasm to solve this sort of issues.
Well, I would like to talk more on that, but we have to conclude our program. Well, this concludes our very first DeFacto review on MMB World. Please join us next week at the same time on MMB World and on Facebook. This has been DeFacto Review.
Yeah, in case if you missed this, you can watch every program from tomorrow, jargaldefacto.com. Thank you very much for staying with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Parliament plenary session lasted more than 5 hours.